What's up, Gorilla Nation? It is Relentless here, bringing you yet another Division 2 build video. If you happen to be new to the channel, or you're just enjoying the content, then please be sure to ground and pound that like and subscribe button. Also, reach up there, trigger the bell, and turn on post notifications, so that way you never miss a live stream or a video that is uploaded. Well, I am true to my word. In the previous Berserk Dilemma build, I said that once I had perfected it, then I would be uploading it as well. Well, that time has come. I'm going to send you over to some gameplay first, but then I'll have the timestamp when the actual build video starts, and that'll be popping up right now. So if you want to fast forward to that point, then by all means, but until then, I'll send you some gameplay.
Eat that shit.
Barry. Barry, God damn it.
He's down. Alright, let's oh, the other players over here. How'd that grenade work out for you?
I hope you enjoyed the gameplay. Now let's hop into the build itself. Now you can use any combination of weaponry that you so choose. You can even use exotics with this. I do not have the Merciless, but the Merciless could be a good secondary, but I wouldn't more or less use it anyways because I'm not too much of a rifle guy. And if you just use it for the pure holster talent, then it's only good, you know, as that holster talent, and then you're stuck, you know, having that downtime of reloading. So I went with this way. First, I have a FAMAS with 18.2k base damage with Sadist, and Sadist is plus 30% weapon damage to bleeding enemies. After 3 kills, applies bleed to the next enemy you hit. Sadist synergizes perfectly with this build, and I suggest and recommend that you run Sadist on all your weapons when it comes to this build, because an extra 30% weapon damage is crucial. And then now that the title update 6 and basically all these new builds are going to have some form of status effects, especially with that new hive when it comes to the Stinger that inflicts that bleed. So with your teammates that are synergizing with your build, you can synergize with theirs, and to anything that's bleeding either by explosives or whatever the case may be, you're going to get plus 30% weapon damage. And of course, Allegro. While equipped, well, that's 10% rate of fire, but then recharged is while equipped, skills deployed at full armor have 25% duration, charges, and ammo. On my sidearm, I just have some random sidearm just for the protected reload. While equipped, this weapon grants plus 10% bonus armor while reloading. If you want to go with something along the lines that have greased, so that way when you do switch weapons, you can switch weapons much faster, then by all means, tweak it as you see fit. And then my other secondary weapon would be the MP5N 17.2k base damage, also with Sadist, Allegro, and then Cannon. Cannon, a little extra distance when it comes to throwing my grenades, in which they also inflict the bleed. Now, there are different variations of this build that are typically floating around after the one that I had put out once Title Update 6 dropped, and they are more or less going with the beating the dead horse, the whole Berserk clutch thing, and they're trying new variations with it. In my opinion, when it comes to the three-piece negotiator, that would be, I'd say, on the bad side of it, or I would say the not efficient side of it when it comes to running the three-piece negotiator's dilemma. Yes, it's cool when your armor's popped, but, you know, when it comes to your health pool, you know, if you're not critting and stuck in that middle of that reload, and then, you know, you're pretty much toast, because you're only going to be staying up long enough as long as you're critting, and then your health pool is going to be considerably a lot less. So that is why I initially had started out with this variation. So let's start with a chest first. If you want a pure PvE build when it comes to this, then instead of the hardened, which is you don't mind sacrificing anyways, you can go with a chest piece such as this one, which has more health, armor, and then of course the main thing, the hard hitting on it. And with the hard hitting, then that gives you 25% damage to elites. Now, if you wanted some more explosive damage, as you can see, I rolled hard hitting on that. I can also put destructive right here, and that would give me 40% explosive damage. But, you know, with that little extra 10% amount of armor, and with the Legos in which I have on this piece, it kind of works out perfectly, and I'll get to that reasoning in a moment. But on this particular chest piece that I mainly run in the DZ, it has 6.5% weapon damage. Of course, I would really like that to be higher, and 47,269. As you can see, that is the attribute that I rolled. So once I find a higher chest piece, also like this Fenris that I have already crafted back in 1.5, as you can see, with 54,595 health, then it would raise my health up to 313, but I considerably will lose a offensive Lego in which I need. And if this one had that offensive Lego in place of the skill power, then I would be definitely using this chest piece. But back to the one at hand. And of course, Berserk, if you can happen to find the perfect Berserk in the Dark Zone, which is, it's just 2% more weapon damage for every 20% max armor. With the regular Berserk, you get plus 8%, and with the perfect Berserk, you get plus 10% weapon damage. So not really too much, but it's an extra 10% weapon damage once your armor is popped. And if you already have one of those, and with the right attribute rolls on it, then by all means insert here. And as soon as that, you know, unicorn falls for me in the Dark Zone, I will also be switching it here, because every little bit helps. Then I have an offensive onslaught with 5% assault rifle damage, 1.5% all weapon damage, and 2% marksman rifle damage, which is, I would prefer that to be SMG. But I only use my secondary, my SMG, if it's faster for me to just switch, or unless I have time to reload my AR, I'll just reload my AR. But moving on to the backpack. It is a Murakami Industries backpack. For one piece, you get 8% health. The attributes, 34,708 health. Once I find a higher roll, I will be putting it here, and that will increase my health pool even more than what it already is. Yeah, 6.5% crit damage. I haven't found one with a good weapon damage part yet, but at least it has 3.5% weapon damage on it. And of course, Vital, 25% health. Also, keep in mind that Vital does not stack, so you cannot have Vital on your chest piece and your backpack. I mean, you can, but you're going to only benefit from one of them. And of course, Spark. This is where it starts deviating a little differently from my original Berserk's Dilemma build. I implemented Spark. Damaging enemies with skills or explosives grant 15% weapon damage for 15 seconds. Requires 9 or more offensive Legos. Thus why I have damage to elites on my mask, but let's not get ahead of ourselves. So the premise is here. Either by my Seeker, by my grenade, in which the one that I throw, or the one, like Gamer Gary would say, that I shoot out my ass when my armor is popped, will all proc Spark. And that's an additional 15% weapon damage. So it definitely comes in handy. And it has a utility mod slot, which is, I do not have one here. I'm waiting to put on some explosive damage. And as you can see, my explosive damages when it comes to mods are considerably, lacking. I have 4% in that one, and then I have another 2% in my other piece, but I don't really have any other explosive damage other than those two. So what I'd like to do is have another explosive damage mod, or you can just also go with just the additional bleed damage. It's whatever you prefer. So now on to the gloves. I kind of got somewhat lucky with these gloves. I mean, it would be completely and totally awesome if they actually had, SMG damage on it, or if it already had a high roll of assault rifle damage. But since, the pie is split up into 3 when it comes to the attributes, if you want to go with their whole pie description when it comes to this system with the attributes, then typically it's going to have, 3 attributes on these Suck Me Off gloves, but each one is going to not be as good as it would be, such as like on an Alps or something that only has maybe 1 attribute roll on them. So once they split up 3, that's why you're going to have 3 kind of medium to low rolls on gloves such as these, but you can get lucky with some crit chance or the 2 archetype weapons that you're using. In this case, my primarily is the assault rifle, so I put 12% assault rifle damage on it. And we're using Perfectly Wicked. When you apply a status effect, gain 20% weapon damage for 20 seconds. Requires 4 or more offensive Legos. So with just Perfectly Wicked and Spark, that is 35% weapon damage. And that can come, by any status effect. Once again, it synergizes with all the pieces in this build. And of course, anybody in your team that also is applying a status effect. You don't have to apply a bleed, such as the way Sadist is, but just any status effect in general, you're going to get 20% weapon damage. But if it happens to be bleed, then you're going to have these 2, which is 35, and then you're going to have another 30% from Sadist for a total of 65% weapon damage to anything that is bleeding. And if you, by some chance, say Seeker's on cooldown, they haven't popped your armor, you're all out of grenades, oh no, what do I do? That's where that secondary part of Sadist comes in handy. After 3 kills, applies bleed to the next enemy you hit. So without any of that, you can still apply the bleed. Now let's go to the 3-piece Negotiator's Dilemma. Let's start with the mask. And since I primarily PvP and PvE with this build, that is why I said, depending on what you want to do, this setup here is good for, even heroic missions or going into any of the dark zones because of that 54% damage to elites. Then I have another 23,859 health. Then we have a defensive mod slot with 5129 health, 10% health regen, and the 2564 armor on kill. And the reason why I want that little bit of armor on kill, so if I am PvEing, doing the dark zone, whatever the case may be, I don't have to drop a chem at my feet just to get a little bit of heal back and wait for that 3 seconds for that Negotiators to blow back to proc. That just with a kill, I get that little bit of armor, so that way with the next time an NPC or player sneezes on me, they're going to get a grenade shot out my ass in their face. But if you don't know what Negotiator's 3-piece does, it's called blowback. Launch a grenade at the target that depleted your armor, can occur once every 3 seconds. And the 2-piece is the 3% explosive resistance. So, moving on to the second piece. It's the Negotiator's Dilemma holster, 9.5% health, 41,201 health, And then it has 2 mod slots in it. The first one is a defensive mod slot with 5118 health, 10% health regen, and 2.5% extra incoming healing. And the other one, we have the 4% explosive damage. We're not really utilizing any skill, we just want that explosive damage. Now the third and final piece of Negotiator's Dilemma. It has 22,092 health and 2 mod slots on it too. Then the first defensive mod slot, we have 6102 health, 2.5% extra incoming healing, and then the 8% health regen, and then of course more explosive damage. And you know, if a teammate happens to cross in our measly little Kim, then we have 3% extra outgoing healing. But just from the defensive mods, when it comes to the extra incoming healing, I have 5%. When it comes to the health regen, I have a total of 28% with just 3 mods. So those really come in handy when you're trying to recoup your health. So that armor on kill, accompanied by just, you know, dropping a chem at your feet, can help you survive long enough in order for your health regen to kick in. And also, when it comes to the blowback, grenade being shot once your armor is broken can cause the player to stagger, put them on bleed, and allow you also enough time to finish them off, especially if you're going, let's say, against a Berserk clutch build. Yes, they're going to be doing a little bit more damage because they are critting, but as soon as they pop your armor, they're going to get hit with that grenade and stagger, and if they can't crit or shoot, then they can't replenish their health and they're toast. So that is what's good, and is the direct, I guess, counter to a Berserk clutch build. But ultimately, it all falls down to still landing those shots. So also keep that in mind. But I hope you guys enjoyed it. It is a tremendous and loads of fun when it comes to using this build. And like I said, if you want full-blown PvE, then by all means just change out the hardened to hard hitting. Also like this chest piece I have here. And also if you want, let's say, more explosive damage, my perfect setup would be having destructive on mine in case of instead of this hard hitting here. But since this chest piece has a defensive mod slot, then I wouldn't be able to utilize Spark. If it had an offensive mod slot here, then that definitely would be destructive, and I would be running this chest piece instead, because it did at least come with a little bit more weapon damage and already 30,432 health, which allowed me to recalibrate the hard hitting for a full-blown PvE. So when it comes to PvE, then I have that damage to elites already on my mask at 54%, so add another 25 to that, and now I'm at 79% damage to elites, and that's not counting the 12% that on my weapons and by way of mods. So if you look at that aspect, then around 83% damage to elites on a full-blown PvE build. So it really comes in handy. Now, if by some miracle you're able to, or let's just say you don't want to use the whole Spark, well, I do have another variation. Before I let you go and not ramble on too much, it is just utilizing like efficient, but basically the same setup when it comes to, you know, health, you know, weapon damage. As you can see, my health does go up a little bit, and I take myself out of contentions when it comes to using Spark, but I have a little bit more armor. And then that's where I would change the damage to elites off of here and instead put a good chunk, like 49-50% hazard protection if I wanted to go a full-blown PvP build. So on the mask, I would go health and then hazard protection, because that will also help you and protect you against status effects as well. So perfectly, I love it the way it is to my satisfaction, but you can tweak it as you see fit. Like I said, if you want a little bit more explosive damage, then you can sacrifice, you know, the 10% hardened and put destructive here. If you want a little bit more protection from status effects yourself, then instead of damage to elites, you can put the hazard protection here. But I'm more of I like a one build, no matter what I'm doing, that I can go to any of the DZs, and I have a problem with players or NPCs, and simultaneously, you know, go to and do, you know, any PvE activities, you know, outside of the DZ that I wanted to with my group, and I never have to have a different loadout. So more or less, I'm kind of micromanaging and compartmentalizing as far as just having this one build that'll basically good to do anything in the game that you want. But thank you guys so much for tuning in. I appreciate and I'm humbled by each and every one of you. We have surpassed that 10K. Now we're almost at 10K 100, so the subs are pouring in, and I can't appreciate you guys enough. I am humbled, and I hope you're enjoying the content and enjoying the game as much as I am. But I'll be having a review of the title update 6 tomorrow, because since it's dropped, I put in about 50 hours so far. So check out that vid tomorrow. But I'll see you guys fudging later.